Rebound. That's the Nothing Personal Word of the Day for Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. And the Milwaukee Brewers did what you're supposed to do after winning 14 games in a row and then losing a heartbreaker in extra innings. You go play your division rival. You start a 5-game series where we told you yesterday how important it was only for the Brewers not to get swept. And they didn't. And I don't mean swept in the doubleheader. I meant swept in the whole 5-game series. Remember, we did all the math. Lose 4 games to 1. You lost 3 games. You're still up 5. But if you lose 5-0, you lose 5 games and you go from 8 games up to 3 games up. It's just math. You don't need to know grammar. Well, the Brewers came in and they pitched their number 1 starter, their game 1 starter. And guess what Peralta did? He did what you do. When you're an ace and a number 1, you either continue a streak or you start a new one. And that's what he did. He gave 6 great innings, and the Brewers handled the Cubs easily in game 1 of the doubleheader, therefore expanding their lead in the division to 9 games over the Cubs. And then game 2 got postponed because of rain. So there'll be a doubleheader today. There'll still be 4 more games. But even if the Brewers lose all 4, guess what? They leave a 5-game series at Wrigley with a 5-game lead. Now it's gravy time. When you're in that clubhouse and you're trying to figure out how your team is going to respond after losing a 14-game winning streak, and you're talking to the front office and you're sitting around with the manager and you're putting out the lineup and you're thinking to yourself, we're going to see about these guys right now. We want a little bit of adversity now that the excitement of the burgers and the win streak is over. And for them to come out and dominate the way they did against the Cubs in game 1, that's what you see from a championship team. Now, I am not going to let myself dream that the Brewers' odds all of a sudden after the win yesterday have changed, and they're now the favorite to come out of the National League and win the World Series. As a matter of fact, I would tell you that if I asked Coca right now to look at our friends at DraftKings and the odds of the Milwaukee Brewers winning the World Series, my guess is they'd still be behind the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Yankees. They may be, maybe the Padres. I bet you that they are still 4th or 5th to win the World Series. Fine. I'm not arguing with it. I'm not upset about it. You got to show me. They're 3rd now. Who did they pass? So they're behind only the Dodgers and the Phillies? All right. Go, Milwaukee, go. And you know what I love is going on is that Milwaukee's sitting there in the clubhouse. It's a split doubleheader. The second game is going to be rained out, so they're sitting there waiting for the game to be called. And all they're doing is thinking about what's going on in the other clubhouse. And what's going on in the Chicago clubhouse is mayhem. It's mischief, and it's a mystery. Yes, Kyle Tucker, their star acquisition, has not been playing well since the All-Star break. That's true. Yes, it's true. He's hitting 148 with an OPS of 368. PU. No extra base hits in his last 15 games. Yes, I get it. 2 for 25. Not good. Slumping. No home runs. Fine. Craig Counsell, the manager of the Chicago Cubs, when asked about it, said, "We will take a step back and try to figure this out with him. He will not play in the second game." Wink, wink. Nobody played in the second game. But at this point, we didn't know that. He will not play in the second game. That's normal. It's totally reasonable to give a guy an off game in a doubleheader. But then Craig Counsell continued his conversation and said, "We will give him some days off to reset him, hopefully." I'm sorry. Did I just hear that you're going to take Kyle Tucker out of your lineup when you are scratching and clawing against the Milwaukee Brewers, knowing that you've got to win 4 in a row just to be 5 games back, and you're now going to take the time to rest Kyle Tucker because you believe who you're going to play in place of your best player who's just not playing well is going to give you a better chance to win? What analytics department is telling you that? Is there an analytics department that's telling you that the slump that Tucker's in is a slump that's abnormal during the course of a baseball season and would be looked at as totally normal by anyone who uses eyes instead of keystrokes and never looks up from the computer and has never watched a baseball game in his life? This is analytics gone rogue. Now, Kyle Tucker not running out a ball to first base, you say frustrated, don't do that again. Kyle Tucker's a good guy. You don't sit him and say, you know what? We're going to give you a mental break. Great. Take a game. But when is this talk of multiple games? What are we doing here? As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what we're doing here. It's not going to happen. The Chicago Cubs in their right mind cannot take Kyle Tucker and just sit him on the bench for a couple of days for a mental reset. Here's how you get a mental reset when you're a player like Kyle Tucker. You play. You get a little dunk. You get a little something, a little floater that falls in off the bat, broken bat, just out of reach of the second baseman, plops right into right field, and you sit there on first base saying, oh, God, he nailed that ball. Here's how you get him reset. You actually can say, listen, just sit dead red. Just do that. Stop thinking about spin. Stop looking for spin. Stop getting fooled by changeups. Just sit dead red. And if you connect, you connect. If you don't, we love you. It's going to be fine. Or here's what we do with a player who's slumping. Hey, get in the cage. We'll show you some video. But other than that, go watch a movie. What we don't say is, why don't you take a few days off and go visit your own hitting coach? What we don't say is, why don't you take a few days off and we're in the middle of a race, and my God, we're in the middle of a race. What I like is what Jed Hoyer did. He gets on 670 The Score, great station, and he says, you know what? These struggles are from a finger injury he suffered in June 1st when sliding. This is literally a quote from Jed Hoyer on 670. He probably changed his mechanics a bit while fighting through it, and I think that probably is a big part of it. I mean, he's a little bit different mechanically than he was at the beginning of the year, and that's what he's working hard to get back to. Clearly, he's struggling. You can see it in his face, in his body language, how much he's struggling. He's such a natural hitter. For a guy like that to go through an extended stretch like this, I'm sure it's one of the first times in his life. What? First times in his life he's probably gone through this. It's hard. Obviously, it's a big year for him, and he wants to help the team. Jed. First of all, during the course of a career, if you're a baseball player who hasn't dealt with adversity, then you're not a baseball player. If you're a baseball player who hasn't had a slump, you're not a baseball player. If you're a baseball player who cannot get yourself out of a slump and realize the things that you're doing, especially with all the help that you get from video these days, if there's a mechanics change and you're just talking about it now after an extended and prolonged period of mediocre results, then what are we doing? The whole point, it used to be just hitting coaches and GMs and managers who would look at a player and say, it looks like he's loading earlier. It looks like he's standing in a different place. It looks like he's not able to reach as much of the plate as he used to reach. It looks like on the follow through that there's a wince. Oh, there's things we notice with our eye. Now you've got 50 people who you pay 25 to 50 grand each, way underpaid, but there's so many of them, and there's so many who would take their job tomorrow because there's all sorts of people who say, oh, analytics, math, baseball, I'm in. Fine, you got yourself a job. Wait, I don't see any change between Kyle Tucker. That's your job. Let's look back in the video and let's analyze exactly what's happening with every at-bat since July 1st. And then the GM gets on a very, very big radio show in Chicago and says, yeah, this could go all the way back to June 1st with the finger injury. Things have changed. And we work with hitters every single day. That's the purpose of a hitting coach. That's the purpose of everything you do when you're showing them any of the analytics of their swing, anything of their positioning, whether you've got the video or you don't. What are we doing? We're waiting for the boos. We're waiting for a situation to get so dire when they're going from tied or 1 up over the Brewers to now 8 back. What are we doing? Is it 9 back? They lost yesterday. 9 back? This whole thing of him sitting for a couple days, I got 2 words for you. Horse hockey. As a matter of fact, Coca, we're going to do an official wait to see. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. We're going to cure this one fast. We'll get a winner. August 19th, 2025. Wait to see. Kyle Tucker's in the lineup on Wednesday. You think they're not going to pitch him? Oh, it's Mizorowski. He's going on Wednesday, maybe. We don't want Tucker to get embarrassed. No, get out there. Get a little doink. We used to call it a duck. That's the thing when you just barely hit it and somehow it just drops in open grass and you celebrate like you just whacked one 450 feet. It's the same type of celebration. Then we'd have some fun in the clubhouse with the guy who had been 0 for 10, 0 for 12 and gets one of those ducks, one of those doinks, and we'd go in and we'd like give him the ooh power. We'd make like the muscle, like way to go. You got to loosen up. I don't feel like Craig Counsell's too loose. I feel like he's tightening a little bit, knowing that he's been looking up at the Brewers ever since he got to Chicago. And normally the only reason that Chicago looks up to Milwaukee is if they're looking north. Other than that, they always look down on Milwaukee. So for me, watching Craig do it, and he did this, Coca, did you see this panicked Craig Counsell quote when he was talking about the George Webb hamburgers like he'd never heard of them? Here's the thing. When you have a platform, and remember, one person or 100 people, I just thought of this, Coca, sorry. When you have a platform and it's small or big, it doesn't matter. When you're a manager, you're talking and people are listening. And he's been a manager for a long time, including in Milwaukee. And when the last time Milwaukee won 12 in a row, which we told you was 2018, and everyone got hamburgers, Craig Counsell was there. And Craig Counsell at the time said, man, what nerve-wracking stuff to get everyone their hamburgers. And my dad used to be at George Webb and used to love George Webb, yada, yada. Cut to 7 years later, as manager of the Cubs, he's asked about George Webb and says, oh, I don't even know who that is. Never seen one. That's the sign when you lie about something that's so small and that's so easily catchable by the internet sleuths. It doesn't mean that you're a liar. I'm not impugning him as a person. Craig Counsell is great. What I'm saying is there's a lot of tightness right now, and it's manifesting itself in very bizarre ways, like sitting Tucker for a couple days, or by saying, I don't even know what you're talking about, except there's a quote from a few years ago where you know exactly what we're talking about. Chicago's got to get its act together. Akshav. So does the entire AL West. The AL West needs to get its act together. It's a struggle. And that division, I thought, and here's where I got it wrong so far, though we are only really early and the late part of the season. But I really had the feeling that Houston, Seattle, and Texas, that they were going to be there come October. Seattle got really hot. They've now lost 3 in a row. They're back to a game and a half behind Houston. Houston is also just 5-5 in their last 10, but that keeps them a game and a half lead in the division. Texas has, I don't know what to say about Texas. I just don't. You're now 2 games below 500. You're 7.5 games off the division. You're no longer in even wild card distance. I mean, you're 6 games out in the wild card. You're barely ahead of Tampa, for crying out loud. You're a game and a half ahead of Anaheim. What in the smokes is going on there? Well, as it turns out, they've just all had opportunities here to be bad at the same time. The Rangers are 2-9 in their last 11 games. And there's nothing you like better than when you make trade deadline buys and all of a sudden you start stinking. It just feels awesome to the front office. When you think you're rolling, you walk into that clubhouse on July 31st and you say, boys, I got your back. Look at the talent we brought in. Hello, Merrick Kelly. Get ready to shove. And then all of a sudden the team can't win a game. Can't win a game. The Mariners were the hit of the trade deadline. Give me Suarez or give me death. Oh, we'll give you Suarez and we'll give you Naylor. That's not good enough. We'll keep going. Oh, God, he can't hit. Mariners are 1-5 in their last 6 games. They got crushed by Philly last night. And the reward for getting crushed by Philly, which always makes me smile, the reward is that you get to face Christopher Sanchez today, who, by all rights, has an opportunity, if Paul Skeens disappears in some sort of magic act, to win a Cy Young. But meanwhile, it's not like the Astros are any better. They've been shut out 3 of their past 4 games. Do you know that they haven't been shut out 3 times in a 4-game span in 20 years? We're talking about Jeff Lunau's dynasty. We're talking about the greatest dynasty in the history of sports, better than the Yankees dynasty. I mean, now I'm trying to imitate Jeff Lunau. How am I doing? Our dynasty, we're the only dynasty. We're the greatest dynasty of all time. I'm the architect of the greatest team who ever laced them up. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Meanwhile, when you lose to the Orioles 7-0 and 12-0 and then to the Tigers 10-0, you say to yourself, I wonder why we're not scoring. Where the heck is Kyle Tucker? Where is Alvarez? Where is Bregman? I don't recognize any of these people. Where's Paredes? At least I thought I'd have him back. Now, it's true. When you're 2-4 in your past 6 games and you've been outscored 52-6, it may cause the team to panic. But not the Astros. If I know Joe Espada like you know Joe Espada, and I know Joe Espada, there is one thing the manager of the Astros doesn't do. He'll do a lot of stuff, believe me. There's one thing he doesn't do, panic. That guy is a flatliner. Do you know what a flatliner means? That means you don't get too high, you don't get too low, you're just steady Eddie. Hey, how you feeling today? About a 6. Well, I thought you'd be better than that. No, I'm about a 6. Worst day ever. How you feeling today? I'm about a 6. What? It's the worst day ever. Yeah, I'm about a 6. Steady. That's Joey Espada. The Astros needn't worry. As a matter of fact, as I think about it, Coca, the entire AL West, while it's true that they have to face some of the best pitchers today, that's true. Scuba's going for Detroit. Astros could get shut out again. It's possible. Sanchez for the Phillies could beat the Mariners, could shut him out. He's a number 1 starter, for sure. Not an ace, but a number 1. And without Wheeler, maybe. By the way, Wheeler got that clot surgery we talked about yesterday. He's out. That wait to see is going to be the case. What a devastating loss for Philly. Moves up Suarez and Sanchez up the rotation for sure. How about Merritt Kelly going for Texas? You got to get a win for Texas today. How does Texas not beat the Royals? Except for the fact, if you look at the standings, it turns out the Royals are not playing too shabby. Wait a minute. They're ahead of the Rangers. It's almost a must win, I think, for Texas, isn't it? They were basically 60-55 rolling at the deadline, right after the deadline. And all of a sudden, it's been a 2-9 since then. It's horrific. I guess my point is that divisions are interesting. If you can go on a 2-9 streak and still be able to sniff playoffs, you got to feel pretty fortunate because you got to expect there's going to be a 9-2 streak forthcoming. You get back to par after 22 games, and then you start again. There's enough time in the season, but time is running out. What you should be looking for when you are rooting for your team or thinking about your team as we head into the later part of August and September is that any sort of sustained losing streak, if there are fewer and fewer games left to turn it around and find that winning streak to get back to par, to eliminate the remnants of that losing streak, then all of a sudden your team's in trouble. But right now, the reason why I say we're on the early side of late is that there's plenty of time for any of these teams in the West. Well, only the Astros, Mariners, and Rangers. We're not talking about Anaheim, and we're just not. We're not talking about the Aths either. Just Astros, Mariners, Rangers. There is time for any of those 3 teams to break out. Still, it's sort of running out, though, but not yet. Meanwhile, the expectation over in the American League is when me thinking that the American League West would have such a great presence. The fact is the Yankees Red Sox have turned it. They're now tied for the top wild card spot, the Yankees and Red Sox. They're tied with the Mariners. Wait a minute. If 3 teams are tied at the top of the wild card standings, that means they're all playoff teams. Now you're just talking about positioning. How are my Rangers going to get into the playoffs and make my prediction of the Yankees missing the playoffs? How's that going to work? Well, that means the Rangers have to catch the Royals, and then they have to catch either the Mariners or the Yankees, really the Yankees. I wonder if the Yankees have a tough schedule coming up. Let me look. 4 games against the Red Sox this weekend. Yeah. That's a big series. You may be saying to yourself, why is that big? Both teams are tied for the wild card. That's fine. If the Yankees lose 4 in a row, they'll just be 4 games behind the Red Sox. But is someone going to catch them given the fact they've got a 3.5 game lead over the Guardians and the Royals? The only way to lose 4 games in the standings when you've lost 4 games in a row is for the team you're playing to be the team that was chasing you, or for the team that is chasing you to actually win 4 games also against a different opponent. Is it possible the Guardians or Royals will go on a 4-game win streak? Not likely, but the Rangers? Wait a minute. Yankees Red Sox used to be a thing. Coca, I'm reminiscing about Yankees Red Sox just because during 18 years of my life, that's all I would ever hear about. Yankees Red Sox, Sunday Night Baseball, Red Sox Yankees, Yankees Red Sox, Saturday afternoon, Yankees Red Sox. This is the biggest rivalry in sports until I went to a Liverpool Manchester game. United, not City. Biggest rivalry in sports. Give me a break. But it's still a good set of games. I need some questions about this, Coca. I need somebody out there has to have something. Tomorrow is our day. Tomorrow is So You Want to Talk to Samson Day. This is your last day to get in my voicemails. Get in there and dial 631-377-4869. That's So You Want to Talk to Samson. And we're going to have an entire hour of it tomorrow, second hour. And if you want to hear your voice on Nothing Personal, ask a question that's interesting, do it in a cohesive, coherent manner. You don't have to say, hello, David, but I prefer it because that's how you are when you're on a phone call. Hey, David, it's John Cocktoaston. Something like that. 20 to 40 seconds. You've got this. 631-377-4869. One of the greatest jealousies I ever had, and I've been jealous before. I've been jealous of people who can dunk. I've been jealous of people who are professional basketball players. I was jealous of high school varsity players, for crying out loud. I was always jealous of the quarterback who was dating the hottest girl in grade school and then middle school and then high school. So I think that anyone who says that they have no jealousy, I'm not sort of buying it. But it's what you do with that jealousy. Does it drive you? Does it drive you into the ground and make you shrivel up like a dehydrated hydrangea? Or does it drive you to excel? I was always jealous of the St. Louis Cardinals, not their baseball operations. Let me get my jealousy straight for you. I was jealous of the Tampa Bay Rays front office, their ability to identify players. I was jealous of the New York Yankees brand association that was shared around the world when I would travel and only see Yankee hats. And in St. Louis, what I was jealous of was their fan base. The number one fan base in all of baseball. And to me and to other executives, it wasn't altogether close. It doesn't matter your view of Big Mac Land. It doesn't matter your view of Albert Pujols. The fact of the matter is that people in St. Louis, they go to games, they would sell out Old Busch, they'd sell out New Busch. It was just a sea of red. It was like a Backstreet Boys concert with blushing. It was just an amazing thing. And then something happened, and here we are about 20 years later, and the St. Louis Cardinals are currently on pace to have their lowest attendance at Busch Stadium since it opened, and it opened 20 years ago. This is its 20th season, with 06 being the first season. I was trying to get a stadium built in Miami while New Busch was being built, and it was we toured it, and we watched how the old stadium was still up while the new stadium was being built. And then the old stadium got demolished during the off season so they could finish up the new stadium, which encroached on the old stadium. Populus, the architect, Earl Sand. I mean, just brilliant stuff. And then they would basically open the doors and the calls would come in. The people were buying tickets. It was my dream that would be us, but it's gone now. And it's hard for me to understand that the St. Louis Cardinals are acting now like every other team has to act. They are actually in the process of trying to sell tickets. And it's a sales process. You have to market. You have to come up with great pricing plans. You have to come up with great benefits. You have to come up with great incentives. You have to have great people actually doing it, not someone who knows how to do like this. And I'm not talking about a bar on the Guinness Tour in Dublin. I'm talking about pick up the phone, pick up the phone. If you're listening to this and not watching, if you're watching, hit subscribe on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. But if you're listening, I'm basically lifting a phone to my head in the same motion that I'd be lifting a drink to my mouth. Hey, I got this. Yes, I had shoulder surgery, torn labrum, but I can still do this. Isn't that amazing? The Cardinals, basically, there was an article in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Derek Gould wrote it. And it's just happened yesterday that the Cardinals are leaking out and getting out there all the things they're doing to basically have the ticket sales staff sell tickets when it used to just take incoming calls. And the reason why they're doing this is because their attendance is so low. So they realize, hold on, let's look around at what other teams are doing, and we got to copy it, except what other teams are doing is always trying to be you. So what do? If you're on pace to finish with 7,000 fewer tickets sold per game, which is what the Cardinals are on pace to, you have to split that up into different categories, and you have to look at different sections in your stadium. I'm going behind the scenes here, but stay with me. This is all accurate. You're looking at which sections have the biggest drop-off in season tickets, and you are then looking at pricing in those sections. And then you're looking at the accounts of the people who left. Did they relocate? Did they downgrade from 81 games to 40 games? Did they go even lower to 10 games? Or did they disappear altogether? And you decide who you're going to go after because there's only a certain number of calls in the day that ticket salespeople can do. So you send out a package to these people who switch ticket plans, and you try to get them back to where they were. It's always easier to get an old customer back to being a new customer if the old customer is still engaged with the product, but not at the frequency they used to. It's way more cost effective to get that 30-game ticket holder who used to be 81 back to 81 than it is to get someone who's never bought tickets to buy a 30-game package or an 81-game package. And so what you do is you spend your time and resources and money, and you figure out the best ways to do something. And what's funny is that the St. Louis employees had to be trained. And what the team president's doing there, my friends there, the DeWitts, they're figuring out, all right, we now have to literally do a script. We have to do an entire plan of these outgoing calls. We have to put systems in play, commission structure in play. We have to do things that other teams have been doing, which just makes us ordinary. And me telling you that the St. Louis Cardinals fan base is now ordinary, it's barely enough. It gives me a stomachache. They sent out their VP of ticket sales, which we rarely did, to give comments to the press, rarely. But the Cardinals sent out their VP of ticket sales to give a quote and said, we know it's going to take time to get back to where it was, and we'll get there, but it's going to take time. What, are you paying attention to Samson's press conferences? That's like, I'm famous for that. I would always say, yeah, we're doing this, but you got to be patient. You got to be patient. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of time to get us through the night. The team stinks. Here's an idea. Yeah, but you know what, Coca? They've had such a sustained run of success. They've been so good this century. Can't the fans in St. Louis just give them a mulligan? Can't they just say, we love this team through thick or thin, and boy, is it thin right now, but we remember the thickness? Aren't you better able to deal with the negative when you've got a reservoir of positive to draw from? Don't you get enough goodwill to get through the day? Well, the Cardinals' goodwill, it's gone. And now the fans they're voting with their wallet. And now the executives are saying, damn you fans. I don't know. I would do what the Cardinals are doing. I would just be so despondent, so distressed that it's not going to get better. When you say take time, you mean like not next year? Like, is it going to be 2 or 3 years of this? Because all of a sudden, the Cardinals, you're going to be the Marlins. Heaven forbid, it can't be. It's time for the review. just a bit outside. Thank you. Just a real heartfelt thank you to the people who asked me to watch this movie. It's on Amazon. It's called Just a Bit Outside, the story of the 1982 Milwaukee Brewers. Number one, in the first 3 minutes of the movie, Robin Yount is interviewed and Bud Selig is interviewed today, current day. And they mention the grandfather of my children, who was the doctor of the Brewers, a doctor named Paul Jacobs, who passed away, sadly. But it's sad when anyone passes away. He was an older man, but he still passed away. Sad. And he's the one who put the Brewers back together, did surgeries on Robin Yount, Paul Molitor. Just a Bit Outside is a nod to Bob Uecker from the movie Major League. Just a bit outside. And when the ball was completely back to the backstop, but when you're on radio, how do you know? When you hear just a bit outside, you assume it's a close pitch. You assume there's going to be a cap touch. There's going to be an ABS challenge. And then when there's not one, you're yelling at the manager saying, you stink. What are you doing? And then you realize you were misled by your radio commentator, your analyst, who said just a bit outside when in fact it was 8 feet over the catcher's mitt. But I digress. This movie brought me back. It brought me back to the 82 season. I was 14 years old, and I had a connection to Milwaukee. Did I ever? Even though I lived in New York, I loved the Brew Crew. And when you talk about Charlie Moore and Ben Ogilvy, and how about Jimmy Gantner, Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, you got Ted Simmons catching, you got Mike Caldwell pitching, Moose Haas. Holy criminy. Pete Vukovich. Do you guys know who Pete Vukovich is? Pete Vukovich was the Yankee hitter in Major League, the one who led the league in nose hair. That's Pete Vukovich, the pitcher for the Brewers in the 82 World Series. You got Raleigh Fingers, Hall of Famer, who didn't pitch because he was hurt, couldn't lift his arm. So the closer was a guy named Pete Ladd, no relation that I'm aware of with Cheryl or with David Doyle. However, this documentary goes through how they made the playoffs, what they had to do to get through Baltimore at the end of the regular season, what they did to get through the California Angels in the conference championships. It's really the ALCS. And then what happened to them in the World Series. Spoiler alert, they didn't win it. Spoiler alert, they were up 3-2. Spoiler alert, the Cardinals came back to win the last two. And here's the weirdest part of Just a Bit Outside, which I don't quite understand. There was a lot of Lonnie Smith and Keith Hernandez. Keith, love you here in SAG. Keith Hernandez as well. He's been on the show before, you know him. Mets broadcaster. He was a Cardinal in 82. And Vince McGee, I can't remember his first name right now or his second name, but he was at the top of the lineup, speed guy. Anyway, you know his name wasn't mentioned in the whole documentary, and I don't understand if that's an oversight or not, but the MVP of the series. And he was the MVP of the championship series when the Cardinals eliminated the Braves, and the MVP of the World Series when the Cardinals beat the Brewers. Darryl Porter. Darryl Porter passed away of a drug overdose, sadly, at 50 years old. But he's the MVP of the 82 World Series. I believe he's not even mentioned. And he was critical in the Cardinals winning Game 6 and Game 7 to win the series. Anyhow, Willie McGee, thank you, Coca. But if you are a Brewers fan and you don't remember 82 because you weren't born, and it's the last time they've been to the World Series because it's been 43 years and still they have not been back to World Series. They're an organization that's never won the World Series, and you want to know why people are baseball crazy right now in Milwaukee with them having the best record in baseball and the best opportunity they've had in what would seem like forever to win a World Series? Although with Sabathia, they really thought they had a shot. But this team is way better than the one Sabathia was brought in to lead them for the second half of the season before 09. So I guess that was 08. Everything is just better in Milwaukee. But go back and you will feel so good about watching Bernie the Brewer slide into a bucket of suds. You'll feel so good about seeing how this team won games. And you'll say to yourself, I can't believe the number of Hall of Famers we had on that team. You had a manager with a wooden leg, for crying out loud. Just a bit outside. Check it out. It's so good. Tomorrow, oh, this is for today. Later on today, someone told me to, again, this is a movie I was told to watch, so I'm going to watch it today. It's called Eddington. I don't know who's in it, and I don't know what it's about. And I think it's scary, but I'm not sure. But I was told I have to watch it. I believe it's the guy who did Hereditary and Midsummer. Ari Aster. Hi. Thank you, Coca. You're the best. You're like, we're together so long, Coca. You're like right inside the ear on the right side, just feeding me stuff before I even know I need it. I'm going to watch Eddington today. How flexible are you? Honestly, can you touch your toes with your fingers when you bend over without bending your knees? There are people I know that can put their hands, their palms on the floor. No. I'm a guy who gives myself a shin massage when I bend over. And I'm giving you all I got, Captain. That's it. First base was never my position. I was more of a second baseman. I could pitch in Little League. No one throws 69 like I do. It was nice. I can't do the splits. And in order to play first base, you're supposed to be able to do the splits because that means you can stretch. And when you stretch, you have a chance to save a microsecond. And that microsecond may be the difference between being out at first or safe at first, which could start an entire rally, which could end up costing you a game or getting you a game. People sort of don't realize how hard it is to be a first baseman. Now, I grant you that a professional baseball player like Rafael Devers should have had the ability, hey, take some grounders, do some stretches, be some flexible, and recognize your shortcomings. Well, guess what? Toronto may have a small problem. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was stretching. Look at that stretch. We've got it on Nothing Personal with David Samson. That is a full stretch. It's brilliant. When you have the flexibility, and for Vladimir to do that, we're talking Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We're not talking a small guy. We're not talking a gymnast. This is not Mary Lou Biles. This is a first baseman, son of Vladimir Guerrero. Mary Lou Retton, excuse me, Simone Biles, funny, amalgam, whatever. You get the picture, Nadia. Look at that stretch. I mean, it's full. Here's the thing. If you're not ready for a stretch like that, guess what? Here's what you're going to hear on your way down. It's going to go and then. When you hear that, that means your hamstring has gone rolled up like an Achilles, gone right out of the frickin', it's terrible feeling. We've had players who've had it. It happened to Vladdy. They had to remove him from the game. You know why? Because he was catching a ball from Bo Bichette. And then it was told that they're going to have to give him an MRI. But then John Schneider, the manager after the game, this is one of the great post-game manager pressers you'll ever see. It's just tightness. Really? I feel like Vladimir was pretty loose to be able to do that. So is what you're not telling us that he felt a pull? Because that's what you feel, no matter how loose you are or how tight you are. Sometimes you go down in that split, and that's what happens, which is why we don't like our players to do it unless they're unbelievably flexible, a word that I would not use to describe Vladimir Guerrero, despite all evidence to the contrary. Now, it is true the Blue Jays have a 5-game lead over the Yankees and the Red Sox, and your thought may be, hey, a little time without Vlad, no problemo. Why would you send him? We don't like sending our guys into the tube. We don't do it just for S's and G's. When you go into the MRI tube, how many times? I will tell you now, Coca, 9 out of 10 times a guy comes out of the tube just to confirm what you thought existed before he went in the tube, and it's never GOOD. Now, you may get surprised sometimes. Hey, it looks like it's not completely torn. This looks like a stage 2 clinger, not a stage 5 nightmare. All right. That's something to think about. That makes me happy. Now we'll only miss 2 weeks instead of 2 months. Great. Good info. Still, when they get put in the tube, we know it ain't a day. But Schneider said, hey, it's just tightness. We'll get him an MRI, and then we'll just rule everything out, and we'll see how he is tomorrow. Come on, man. Stop with these teams getting their players MRIs and saying, yeah, we'll find out the results tomorrow. No. When we put our guy in an MRI, we get the results 5 minutes later. How many times do I have to tell you that? I don't know why teams are not forthcoming. What, they can't reach the player? The player's right there in the tube. Send the player home. Hey, hi, Vlad. It's Dave. Just to let you know, that's a grade 3-er. Looks like it's going to be 6 to 8. See you tomorrow. When you get to the ballpark, we'll start treatment immediately. There's going to be a lot of people with latex gloves who are putting their hands on you. There's going to be a lot of lube and a lot of rubbing. I guess the reason I'm worked up is that Toronto is also a team that I said, yeah, they're going to win their division. Yeah, they're going to be a force in October. Yeah. Do I still think that? I do. I do. Vladimir's going to be fine, but he's going to miss games because it's not just tightness. He did an MRI. You get it. Wait till they announce it today. It's going to be very simple. And it'll be a very simple announcement. It won't be a press conference. It won't be anything. It'll be some sort of tweet that has roster moves for today. Vlad Guerrero Jr. on IL, 10-day hamstring tightness. Or they won't put him on the IL. They'll try to hide him for a couple days. Then you've got to wait for the tweet from the Blue Jays when the lineup comes out. And when the lineup comes out, you can bet your sweet bippy Vlad Guerrero Jr. will not be in the lineup. And just to cover my bases here, because we're live, why wouldn't I? If Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in the lineup, do you smell that? Do you? I do. It smells like desperation. Don't do it, Toronto. You're going to be fine. I promise. Just like I'm going to be fine. And so are you with our nothing personal pick of the day. Nothing personal pick of the day. Yes, indeed, we had those Blue Jays beating the Pirates. Little did we know that Tommy Pham would go crazy and flip his bat on a walk, which led to a benches clearing incident because Tommy Pham is ridiculous, telling us that he was disrespected because the catcher was asking the umpire about a called strike or a ball, whether or not it was the right call. And Tommy Pham was like, hey, seriously? This is literally what Tommy Pham said on Twitter. Bitching about a ball not being called the strike to the umpire when it's clearly below the zone and away is disrespectful, not only to the umpire, but the hitter as well. Sorry, Tommy, you felt disrespected by a catcher asking an umpire, hey, where was that? Tommy Pham flipped the bat on a walk because F him, and then is honest and says on Twitter, hey, Keegan Matheson, that dude has 2 years in the show. I know the zone. Sorry, Tommy, my bad. You know the zone, so therefore, we don't need automatic ball strikes. Forget a robot ump. We don't need a human. Here's what we'd like you to do, Tommy boy. And you're fine. You're going to get it. Just call your own balls and strikes. Do us a favor. Thank you. I'm sure that'll work out great. Like playground 4, 8, 6, 9. Like playground basketball. Just call your own fouls. If you break the rules, you make it, you take it. Now make your move. God, I love you, Bruce Hornsby. Why those? Can you imagine, Coke? I'm trying to learn lines, and I'm trying to remember stuff to try to act, and I can remember lines from songs from 30 years ago. What's wrong with my brain? Do I have a brain cloud, Coca? I mean, or is it just masked anxiety? I don't know. Whatever it is, the Blue Jays were not able to beat Paul Skeens and the Pirates. They just weren't. Now, it doesn't mean Paul Skeens got the win because, Coca, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe Paul Skeens got the win. But what it means is Gausman didn't get the win either. So we lost. We're 110 and 105. Let's go back to the Texas Rangers in the AL West. I got one for you. If you're Merritt Kelly, you got to win today. Hard stop. You're chasing the Royals now. You've got to win this game. You're the trade deadline acquisition. You're going against the Royals pitcher who is going to be a free agent, who now was signed to that long deal for no particular reason. Remember him? Who's got the bigger incentive today? The guy who doesn't have a contract and is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, or the guy who just re-upped at a total premium to his worth? Let's go, Merritt Kelly. And the Rangers are minus 108 only over Lugo and the Royals? Hell yeah. We're running it back with a minus 108 picks, odds subject to change from our friends at DraftKings, and we're back to only 5 games over 500. Do you know what you can't do if you are a person with a platform? Me, David Samson. Do you know what I can't do? I can't make defamatory comments. I just can't. Now, I can tell stories that are true that will upset people for telling you those stories. I can tell you things to the best of my recollection that they happened, and I may get some things wrong. I may require corrections. All of those things may be true. You know what you can't do if you're Newsmax or CNN or MSNBC or Fox Business or any of them? You really can't spend your newscast defaming a company and blaming a company for a fault that led to the loss of an election. I'm talking about Dominion voting systems. If you remember Dominion voting systems, they've been impugned from day one by both Republicans and news organizations for having voting systems that didn't work, that voting machines were, it was all rigged. And so the 2020 election was rigged. Well, you know what Dominion did? They filed a $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit against Newsmax, and they said, listen, what you said about us, it's not only not true, but also you've crushed our business because people believe it's true because you're supposed to be a neutral news organization and you reported it like you knew it, and it turns out you didn't know what you were talking about. Remember the John Gruden lawsuit situation where either you're after money or you're after blood, and if you're after blood, then money won't matter? Well, guess what Dominion was after? Money. And guess what they got? Money. Newsmax agreed to give them $67 million to basically settle the libel lawsuit that Dominion Voting Systems had brought against Newsmax over these voting machines. That settlement was just disclosed in an SEC filing by Newsmax, and you're looking and you're saying, oh, I get it. You paid $67 million. You get to say that you're not guilty. You get to say that you are journalists, that you don't report anything wrong, but we paid $67 million as a nuisance because, boy, would that have been an expensive trial. So we thought it was better just to settle right now. Let's do it. Well, we'll give you $67 million if you promise that that I won't have to apologize ever or admit that I did anything wrong. And then Dominion says, well, it'd be nice if you'd apologize. It'd be nice if you acknowledge that you lied. But you know what? We'll take the $67 million. And so they did. The Dominion spokesperson said, we're pleased to have settled this matter. Newsmax said, we're not offering an apology. We are fair, balanced, and we conducted within professional standards of journalism. So the $67 million, are they using the Samson economics? Are they just saying that it was really quite normal to pay $67 million because our lawyers charged us like $2,000 an hour and going to court would have been multiple hours, and maybe there would not have been a jury of our peers, but a jury of their peers, and maybe the truth would have come out that in fact we made the whole thing up, and then what if we got damages of $1 billion? But we could appeal it, and boy, the Supreme Court seems to very much be slanted our direction. However, can't guarantee it. You're god darn right you can't. That's how you get to $67 million. This is a significant settlement, folks. You can't defame someone when you don't have the facts. Just don't. When we come back for hour 2, there is a chance that we will have Hall of Fame coach John Calipari. We believe it. Will we see it? We'll let you know right after the break. Welcome back to hour 2 of Nothing Personal on this Tuesday. And you know what Tuesday means? It means that we have a guest, and this is a special Tuesday because up early and ready to go, we have, you may know him as the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. You may know him as the 2015 inductee to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, or you may just know him as Coach. John Calipari is joining us. How are you, John? Thank you for joining us, Coach.
David, thanks for having me.
So there's so much to talk about as we are approaching the season. So many changes have taken place, and we are not going to get political unless we want to, but we have to talk about money because it used to be that we could go on a show and just talk about players and talk about pick and rolls with Red Holzman and Pat Riley. But now the real talk of how to put an athletic department together starts with money, like the professional ranks, frankly. So I was wondering how it is with you and with NIL, with all the changes that have been made and your career obviously so long and storied. What would you say is the biggest change from day one when you started coaching to today?
Well, the biggest thing I'm battling, the biggest thing that I want to make sure I stay on the right side of is my career. We've always been about being transformational, helping families. It wasn't just a player, it was a family. And doing many draft picks and lottery picks and all the other stuff, max contracts, transformational. I don't want this to become transactional, which, all right, I'm paying a kid to play for me. For me, what moves me, because people say you're still doing this, you still have that passion and enthusiasm for what you're doing. Yeah, because I can help young people and their families move to another level. Get them, I call it like the pebble and that ripple going forward and forward and forward and forward. That moves me. Now, winning is a big part of it, David. You have to win to really help kids. And if you want to help a lot of kids, we've had 6 players drafted in 2 different drafts from my team. Well, that team was a Final Four team, won a national title. You have to win.
But here's the thing. You've put so many players into the NBA. It's really quite staggering. I would say that if you have a guy, a young man and a family, and they want to be a pro, they want to play for you. But is that enough of a sales pitch anymore? Because it used to be everything. But if you have a jump ball in terms of money, is that the differentiating factor? Or are you finding kids are really not really understanding your view of transformation and they're really looking at their money?
Well, this will be an important year for that. But the reality of it is, I would say what we do now, people could say, well, they don't do anything different, or, they're just recruiting X, Y. The reality of it is what you said, over 80 kids in that 50 first rounders, 40 lottery picks, 15 top 10 picks, 4 number 1 picks, MVP in the NBA, 2 different guys, Derrick Rose, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So we're doing something different. And what happens is you bring a lot of good people together. You let them compete. You don't promise the world. You tell them it's going to be hard. You got to develop pro habits. You got to be a great teammate. Great teammates never get traded. David, did you ever trade a great teammate?
No, we tended to trade guys who were bad in the clubhouse and then also bad on the field. The problem was if they're bad in the clubhouse and a superstar, we'd have to think twice.
Yeah, you got to deal with that. And That's, for me, recruiting. The benefit that I've had is all my best players, the Anthony Davises, the Carl Towns, the John Wall, the DeMarcus Cousins, I shouldn't have started because now I'm,
you got to keep going. But
so I say those were the first wave of guys, all great teammates. So it made my job easier. That's part of what happened. Well, when you do that in recruiting, if I see a kid and he disrespects his mother or grandmother, I'm out. He's not going to respect anybody if that's the case. If I see him and I'm watching him play, he doesn't help his team get better. He doesn't respond to coaching. When he's not playing well, he acts like it doesn't matter. Well, that guy, don't bring him into this.
How do you deal with the reality of what I perceive to be the existence of even more and more tampering having to do with the portal and money being thrown around and players, they think they're good, even if they want to be one and done, but then they get another offer. Have you had to change your mindset and how you keep a team together, or even does it matter to keep a team together anymore?
No, you have to, but when you're in the handshake line after and the guy takes extra attention with one of your players, you kind of, come on, man, what are you doing? Stop. But let me give you some things that I'm really trying to make sure we have an impact with stuff. If you want to ask me, well, how can this stuff change? First of all, the transfer rule has to change. You can't have, could you imagine if your team had all free agents every year? What would you have done?
What? John, can I answer that? Because it's my dream, and let me tell you why. Because the guaranteed contracts in baseball, you end up having great injury risk and great underperformance risk. And we offered the union, John, free agency every year because they wanted to get younger players paid faster and paid more because they can be really good and young and making the minimum. But the union said no, they did not want to give up the long-term deals that were given to players. So I'm very fascinated to hear why free agency every year, which frankly college sort of is beginning to feel like, why that scares you.
Well, there's a couple reasons. One, a young man goes to 4 different schools in 4 years. Does he have a chance to graduate? Is there any loyalty to him from the last school he's at? What are we doing to a young man if we pay him $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, and then his career ends without a college degree? He thinks he made all kind of money. Yeah, there's this guy FICA. You're going to pay taxes on stuff. And now all of a sudden he's offered a job for $60,000. Do I have to work? Do I have to show up? Are you going to give me a car? Do I have meal? We're going to have mental health issues for how we're dealing with this. And you know what? Let's not look past and say it's not our fault. We're here because of us. So I'm saying this. Transfer once without penalty. You picked the wrong school, the wrong coach, whatever you did. Mm-hmm. Now, second year at another school. If you choose again to transfer, you got to sit out. Now you played 2 years at the last school. You went to 3 schools instead of 4, but you were at a school long enough to get your degree or be really close. So it's kind of like guardrails. Here's the other thing. How about freshman recruiting? No one's recruiting freshmen. You know why? 2 reasons, because kids will transfer and they can cherry pick. There were coaches this summer not out one time evaluating freshmen.
Well, why would that be?
Because they're only going to take transfers and they're going to cherry pick and they're going to pay more than the school that they're leaving. They're just going to say, we're cherry picking. That's what you want in college athletics. How about this? We played against kids that were 27, 28 years old. My guys, we had the youngest team in the SEC. So my 18-year-old played against a 26-year-old. Why? So tell me why a 26-year-old is still in college.
Well, if they are, they're called doctors.
Right. No, they're getting paid and they're looking like, I can't make this money the rest of my life. If I could stay till 32, I'll stay till I'm 32. Look, 5 years. You could do 5 to play 5. In other words, we'll give you 1 more year. You have 5, but there are no waivers. If you're hurt, you got to leave in 5 years. If you're hurt twice, you got to leave.
So no red shirt. We'll take that away and just give people 5 years. This is interesting. I hadn't contemplated it. If you give all players 5 years eligibility, and that's it no matter what, and you're talking about losing one of those years on the 3rd transfer. So right. On the 3rd transfer, you'd have 4 years of eligibility. You'd lose the 5th.
There you go. Now, here's the other way you could do it. The old way, 5 years to play 4. You have 5 years. That means you can transfer. You can transfer again and sit out. You play your last. You get your 5 years. You could redshirt and play 4. You could play, get hurt, play 3. You could do it that way, but it's still 5 years.
Is it changing how you recruit? Do you keep, when you're in high schools, one of the things that I thought about is because of the portal, that teams, there's a limited roster size, obviously, and you have to leave spots open in theory for the possibility of the portal. So is that impacting high schoolers?
Yes.
And they're getting less of a look because you don't know the spots?
Yes. My friends who have children, I can't even get my kid a smell. You got everybody waiting. You got mid-majors saying a top 100 may fall to me. I'm not taking anybody. I'm going to wait. Or they're saying completely, I'm taking older players. If I can coach a 26, 27-year-old, I can win. Now, what does that do for our sport? It totally changed what we do. I'm going to give you another one. The collectives. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
The money comes from different donors and boosters, and then the collectives carve it up amongst the team. How about we did this? Collectives could only be involved with retention of your players. They cannot be involved in recruiting freshmen. They can't be involved in recruiting transfers. They can't give those guys deals when they're coming in. But you got rev share, you got real NIL. They can still be paid, but they can deal with retention. So the players that want to come back, they can now jump in and add money to those guys. So
I worry about the tampering in that case because you'd have players, the collective would be incentivized to get to players before they choose to say, listen, you're a year out, but we have a pot of money here. It's retention money, but we're going to allocate you $400,000 from this. Wink, wink, don't you worry.
All right, here's the problem with what you said. Really good players aren't going to be there. They're gone.
It's true.
And the ones that stay, okay, why not reward them? How about we reward them again? And if they leave as a transfer, that other school can't use the collective money. They can only use money from rev share and all that. So you're better off staying. Wouldn't you want to, we're not forcing anybody to do anything. But here's the other thing I like about it. Basically, we'll double the money the players are getting.
Because it's on top of scholarship?
No, on top of rev share.
Oh, well, yes, the collective would be on top of that. But if you're a player and you're evaluating your deals, you have to, when you're going and if you're recruiting someone, John, if you have the rule in place that you just said, you're competing against other schools who may have already given information on, quote, what the retention money would be, in addition to what the rev share would be.
All right, so here's what I said. You get all the collectives in a room. You ready for this term? Collective bargain with the collectives, okay?
Unionize the collectives.
Yeah, here's what we're going to do. Tell us what you think. Now, here, as a collective, I don't have to be involved in the recruiting. Well, it's easier for me to get money for returning players. If you make that easier, my job becomes easier and I make more money. I'm happy. I'm good. All right. What happens if you step out of line? Like the old NCAA, disassociation. So if you're caught tampering, if you're caught talking to young kids, if something happens, we all agree that's the punishment. It's collective bargain. So now all I'm trying to say is we have a way that you're not throwing the collectives out. So stop. You can't. You let them in the house. They solved an issue for us, and now you want them to leave. They're not leaving. So why don't we give them an avenue or a lane that would work for them, create more money for the players, but keep them out of recruiting, keep them out of all the transfer. If they tamper, if they're doing stuff, and that always will happen, but the NCAA's got to have to step up and do something in this.
Well, I'm worried about that because when we think about NCAA enforcement, and I'm trying to figure out what database they're going to have, how they're going to be able to evaluate different deals, what's worth what. it seems to me that it's just ripe for corruption. And I haven't seen, and I don't know if you've been in meetings where they've been giving you clarity. What is happening with the NCAA enforcement and how they're going to value these deals?
Well, it's not the NCAA. It is Deloitte. And Deloitte has relationships with other schools and stuff. So first of all, you walk in saying, well, can you recuse yourself? You have a relationship with that school. Let somebody else evaluate their stuff. But what happens is, you're right. What is someone's value in the United States of America?
To me, it's market. It's whatever someone will pay is truly the definition of value.
And so there is emotion when you hired a coach. There was emotion, and you probably overpaid. I don't tell anybody, but I've been overpaid like 10 different times.
I've overpaid managers and then fired them and paid them not to manage. How's that one?
And, well, you and I did it too. We were okay with it, so it's okay. I mean, it happened to us.
Yes, it did.
So I would tell you that it's going to be hard, and that's why I say keep that within the recruiting and all that. Let these other collectives deal in retention, and it could be looser. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be more on emotion. And they could, but you're going to double the money for the players. You're going to keep things more in check. Now, here's the bad thing in what I just said. There are schools that have more rev share money than we do. There's a school in our league that has over double what we have in the SEC. There are teams in other leagues that do not have football that have maybe triple what we have. The other thing that happens is the ACC. There's some schools that are making almost triple what today they announced North Carolina's rev share is $7 million. It was announced by Bubba Cunningham. So how do you get within that?
But that just makes me, when we were competing, I was a small payroll team for 18 years. We had to compete against the Yankees. We beat them in the World Series. You're never going to have total competitive balance, or total, there's not going to be a swap of salaries where one team's at 100 million, one team's at 105 and nothing else. So I assume that doesn't get in the way of your competitive juices, your ability to win.
No. But transferring without penalty 5 times does. Playing against 28-year-olds. There was a kid, he had a beard, and he's waving to his 2 kids in the stands. I'm like, what? And I said, what about his NIL? Oh, that goes toward his alimony. I'm like, what is happening here? So I'm saying, let's get that in control. Let's get the collectives to agree together how they're going to operate. And now we can move on. Now, I'm going to say this. If the government, like they'll say, we got more important things to do, we're not going to get involved. Then who really wants the government in your business? Unless there's no other choice.
Depends what the business is.
That most would say 99.8% would say we don't want them near us. But this one, you end up without government intervention in what I just talked about, maybe codifying the deal that they did, okay? Maybe some safe harbor against state attorney generals that are suing the NCAA. Well, they can't do that government stuff. So, but here's what happens. If you don't, you're going to have to cut sports. If we don't have that. Second thing, Olympic sports are going to get hit, and so are the women. Title IX. I mean, it's going to. How about this one? Do you really want to see 2 leagues, 50 schools, 60 schools, 2 leagues come together and say, we're just doing our own thing? Do you want to see that? How about this? Do you want to wipe out all those mid-major programs that go in the NCAA tournament and do well? Hold on. If you're not in that 50, because your football's not strong enough, we're talking about teams that have won national titles in baseball and basketball, and you may be out, and it may be your school. If you talk SEC and Big Ten and a few other schools, who would be out? You and I could name 20 schools and say they can't have them out. Well, they
Well,
can't
it's the
have them out.
concept of the Super League. And, they tried that over in Europe, and there's talk. Obviously, listen, we read about it every day with the NCAA. We talk about it within baseball owners' meetings back when I was there. The concept of the Yankees, you need us. What are you going to play the Red Sox for 162 times a year? It's not, ESPN would have liked that. But other than that, it would not have worked well. But you're against expansion of the tournament, aren't you?
Yes.
And so I'm trying to wrap those two concepts in my head, because one of the benefits, obviously, of expansion is more money split amongst more schools who, when on the bubble, would actually have more of an opportunity. You'd create a different bubble, but it would be lower down. So speaking on both sides of the issue, why would you not want more schools to have the opportunity to get a piece of what would certainly be a bigger pie?
Do you like how the World Series is played? Would you want to make wholesale changes with the World Series? Would you want to add more games to it? Would you want to subtract games from it? Don't mess with the World Series. My thing is, don't mess with the NCAA tournament. And if we go to a super conferences, it's going to eliminate St. Peter's beating us or Oakland beating us. Now, we won a whole lot of games in that NCAA tournament over the years, but
yes, you have.
Those games became and they breathed life into those programs. That's part of the NCAA tournament. That's why.
But if you expand it, you'd have more of that.
No, you wouldn't. It would water it down. We've gone to those early games to add more teams. I think that's good. It didn't. They're part of the NCAA tournament. They feel a part of it, but the real stuff starts after those games are done. But it's in the NCAA tournament, but they did it in a way to not take away from the NCAA tournament. Just how I feel. And let me say this. The pitch count in baseball, I love it. But I'd probably say at the time, don't mess with the game. It's the greatest thing they did. You can go to a game now in 2 hours. It used to be 5 hours.
Believe me, I used to get home at 1 a.m, and I can't believe there was no pitch clock when I was there. But I think you're sort of maybe proving my point and not yours, which is the tinkering that you may think is a tiny tinker ends up being a mammoth change in how people, sponsors, regular people, how they interact with your product. I think if you're stagnant, you're really going backwards.
So you're saying you don't believe there should be free agency with all these kids. Now, you understand, only 3 years ago, there was not. You had to sit out.
Yeah, of course. But the whole world, listen, I didn't start this change that happened in the college ranks, but my God.
We did it to ourselves.
You certainly did. And
it happened back at the Eddie O'Bannon. This thing could have been cured back then with California. We had arrogance and we're, our self-righteousness. And now all of a sudden we're where we are.
And you understand that now, of course, you are all living with the actions of the past. And once the pebble, you talked about a pebble in terms of transformation, the pebble is also what's happening in college. And that pebble is also transformational, not just for kids, which is what you do and you're the best at it, but also for the change that's happening in the sport. And what I'm worried is, well, I think it's a fact. I don't know how to get the toothpaste back in the tube now.
Government. That's it. Government. And let me say this to you. I think we're helping kids because it's fair. What I've said to your listeners today, you can transfer once without penalty. You made a mistake. The second time, you're going to have to sit out a year and play 2. Better chance to graduate. Less people involved in tampering. Because would you take a kid that had to sit out? Would you go pay him $1 million? He has to sit out. So it slows that down. It kind of pushes agents back a little bit. But I think it's right for the kids academically, for the movement. How about your own son? If you had a son or my son, I want him to be in situations where he's got to fight. Can't just run. You cannot just run you got to fight. We're dealing with 17 and 18-year-olds, not 27 and 28, 29-year-olds.
Well, of
So
course,
I
you are
think,
dealing with 27, 28, and 29-year-olds. We're
did I
trying to
tell
cut
you,
that
did I
too.
say that? Did I tell you that? Yeah.
Ye-
And I'm trying to say this is college. How about this? If you want to play when you're 25, go to the G League if you can't get in the NBA. Go over to Europe. This is college basketball, college football. And I think it's again, I'm trying to come up with solutions because I'm in the middle of this muck right now. And my son, who played for me, worked for Rod Strickland at Long Island, worked for Jerry Stackhouse at Vandy. He's working for me now. I don't want to leave this sport the way this looks right now for his career. And that's why I'm kind of being animated like, come on now. And if we can't do some of this, the problem with us trying to do the transfer rule, the eligibility, there'll be suits, there'll be lawsuits. And that's why government's got to come in unless they don't mind Olympic sports being hurt or women's being hurt. If they don't mind it being two power leagues, if they don't mind sports being cut, instead of having 18, 19 sports, you're going to have 6.
We're going to find out. I promised you'd be out after 25 minutes. I would
I'm
like
not
to
ready
keep
to
going.
go.
You're
I ain't
not.
ready to go.
Coke is yelling at me. He's like, let Coach go. He's got stuff to do. How about this? Can we promise to do another round of this?
We
Because
will.
there's so many more topics, and it's so important. You've been listening right now to head coach John Calipari, Arkansas Razorbacks Hall of Famer. John, I appreciate your time today.
Thanks,
I really
David.
do. Thank you,
Thanks.
Coach.
All right. Bye-bye.
One of the greatest things about John, thank you, John, Coach Calipari, for doing that. One of the greatest things about him is he's going to tell you how he feels. We like that and nothing personal. You just heard the scoop. No changing. Let's not change anything. That's the perfect plan. Love you, John. That's it. We're going to just stay pat. Here's who doesn't agree with that. Tony Petitti. Tony Petitti is the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference. I worked with Tony Petitti for years in Major League Baseball. He worked his way. He was the head of the network and then deputy commissioner and then left and became the commissioner of the Big Ten. And he's got some thoughts here that are getting a lot of attention. Let me see if I get this straight. According to Tony Petitti, the Wisconsin Badgers will be in the college football playoff every single year. Hell yeah. Done. I think that's what he means when he says he wants, forget 12 to 16 teams, he's looking for 24 to 28 teams. Well, that seems like a very heavy expansion in an era where we can't even agree of how to get from 4 to 12 and 12 to 16. But let's skip it all. And here's what we're going to do for the Big Ten. We're going to make sure that every year, no matter what, 7 of our teams are in the CFP. But don't worry. If you think it's just the Big Ten, I promise you it's not just you. It's also the SEC. We'll give you 7 automatic bids. That's only 14. There's plenty of spots left, I swear to God. You're worried about the ACC? Where are you, Mike? We got the ACC, the Big 12. We're good. We'll give you 5 each. 7 plus 7 is 14. 14 plus 5 is 19. Plus 5 is 24. Wait, we still have a few spots left. How about 2 automatic bids for non-Power 4 conferences? 2 total bids for non-Power 4 conferences. Phew, thank God, we'll take them. What about the old at-large? What about when someone's got a fantastic season? We got you covered. 2 for you. So hold on. 7 automatic bids. So all the Wisconsin Badgers have to do is finish in the top 7 of the conference? And none of these crazy conference tournaments, conference championship games, skip them. No problem. Who cares? All we got to do is play the regular season. Now, does that mean that all of the non-conference games don't really matter too much? Because they don't. How about some beefcakes? Forget it. Pancakes? Forget it. Hotcakes? Oh, I likey. With a little syrup. Now we're just focusing on the standings for the conference. And if you're in the top 7, what a brilliant idea. Here's the thing. If you're the NCAA and you're talking to Tony, and Tony is giving you his idea of what he would do to expand the CFP, and it puts the SS in self-serving, what is your response? Is your response, well, I totally understand why you'd want to do this. I absolutely agree with you, Tony. We got to get the Big Ten and the SEC right in there. We got to get them 7 bids no matter what. I don't care how bad they are. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care if the quarterback that got him the good record gets hurt, and therefore there's no bid because the quarterback who's playing is not the quarterback who's the big name, even though the team's great. Skip it as long as you have a good conference record. But don't worry, if you're not in the Big Four, we got you covered. We got plenty of slots for you. I don't know. I feel like it's a little much, don't you? Does it feel a little super leaguey? Feels that way to me. Is that where we're headed? Is there some sort of back and forth going on between college basketball Hall of Fame coaches as well as commissioners of conferences in football? I don't think so. Everybody and his mother is trying to come up with a way to do CFP expansion because the networks want it. Everyone's trying to come up with it because the Super League wants it. Everyone wants to come up with it because these conferences want to show that they are large and in charge and they need it. What about just the good old days? Right, Coach? The good old days where you get rankings by a bunch of men who don't really watch everyone, and they're sort of conflicted out of it, but they sit in a room, and then all of a sudden, every week, white smoke comes up, and then all of a sudden, every single network, like my friends at CBS, do special live rankings reveals. Who's in, who's out, the first ever CFP rankings. Let's see where we are. Now, here's what we do. We'll reveal the standings. That'll be good for content. We're just going to take a snapshot of the standings that you can find anywhere on the Intergoogle, and we'll slap it up there and say, there you go. We got a big conference game coming up in 7 versus 8. Now, it's a big one because you got to finish in the top 7. If you're in the top 7, you're in. If you're 8, OUT. Ranked, doesn't matter. Not ranked, who cares? Rankings. Schmankings. I'll bet you $1. I'll bet you $1 right now that the TPP, the Tony Petitti plan of 28 teams, DOA, dead on arrival. I don't care what the networks say and how many games they want, but there is no chance, toilet pants, that they will come to an agreement where these two conferences get 14 automatic bids. Give me a small break. What happens to teams like Middle Tennessee State? Where do they go? Where do they fit in? Why am I bringing up Middle Tennessee State? 3 words I haven't said together since this show started. 1,339 episodes, plus all the other ones we did before June 2nd that were sit-downs or mailbags or extras, bonuses. But let's just pretend there's only been 1,339 since the middle of October 2019. I can tell you for certain, because of the great job that Beth McConville does in transcribing every single show, I've never said Middle Tennessee State. Why am I saying it today? Because they, according to Front Office Sports, are doing something that is awesome. It turns out that the Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders have decided that they're going to do something because they've got a budget problem. They've got a budget problem because they're not making money. They're not making money because they can't make money. So what do you do in the real world? Not if you're a football program, but what do you do in the real world when you work for a company that's cash flow negative or not making money? What do you think you do? 1, try to increase revenue. 2, decrease expenses. That's what normal companies do. What about personal? What do you do in your own life? Wait a minute, at the end of every month, I seem to be at a negative. There are people knocking at my door, and it's not heaven. What do? You adjust your expenses. Middle Tennessee State has a newly appointed GM named Dana Marquez. And do you know what they're doing? They're saving $668,000 by eliminating alternate uniforms and cutting back from the 408 helmets that they invest in. And they're reinvesting that money into, what do you think? The football program and into NIL, so they can have a better team. They talked about it. They came out with an absolute quote just talking about why would they be cutting budgets? Why do we need all these uniforms? How about one home, one road? That's it. Why do we have to pay for all these alternate uniforms? We're not getting enough bang for our buck in merch. Therefore, we save the money. Don't buy the extra uniforms. Wash them with Tide, not a sponsor. Then use a stick to get all the stains out. Then sew up the holes, which we can do. We even do that in the big leagues. When you slide and get a hole or a spike hole, sew it up. We're not replacing pants every month. Get done a stick. Forget it. Why do we do it? How are we going to best compete against different positions if we're sitting here spending money on stuff that we're only wearing one time a year? Now you're speaking my language. That's a quote that Dana gave, to Front Office Sports. And their 3-year plan of cutting 2 of their uniforms and 4 of their helmets, they said, we just went one color. We did a game helmet and a practice helmet. $500,000 savings from the helmet reductions. Eliminating uniforms saves you $84,000. It's like low-hanging fruit. It doesn't even impact your day. And then he has the opportunity. He has the opportunity as the GM to turn around the program by putting money into the product. The product is not the uniform or the helmets. The product is the people. The product is the players. But Middle Tennessee State didn't stop there. Because not only do you have to cut expenses, which they're doing, but also you have to increase revenue. What better way to increase revenue than selling tickets? Do you know what Middle Tennessee State is doing? They are having their players get involved in selling tickets, much to the chagrin of Matthew Coca. They are treating these players like employees, not paying them like employees, no benefits like employees, but they're sort of like employees. What's wrong with them working in the sales department? What's wrong with saying, hey, we'll give you a little shtup, you'll get a little commission, but if we have more ticket revenue, guess what? That's more money into the program. That's a more balanced budget. That's more money into NIL. Money flows downhill, baby. What's at the top of the chain? Revenue. Always revenue is at the top of the chain. That's what you should be focusing on. I have no issue at all. Think about what Dana said. If we're going to pay you $2,000 a month and you want to make $4,000 a month, you got to work to get the $4,000, and we'll show you how to do that. That's what Dana said to Front Office Sports. Why is anyone questioning that or in an uproar about that? How does that not make perfect sense to you? You make X, you want to make X plus Y, you got to work for Y. That's like a Tuesday. That's like all of us. We all dance for our dinner. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, doing clips. You all work, trying to figure out how to pay your bills, trying to figure out how to make more money. There is not one possible objection that I can come up with. And then Coca drops on me pre-show in the pre-production meeting when we're going over the show. And again, he's whispering in my ear right now. I love when he whispers his sweet nothings into my ear. It makes me feel so good. Football is their job. Really? Are you sure that their entire job is football? How's that really preparing them for when they're not going to be in the NFL or able to play in the UFL, CFL, XFL, or any initial FL? Isn't their job to get good grades? Why don't we pay them for getting good grades? Well, that's their job. They're in school getting free tuition to get a college degree to set them up because, God forbid, they're not in the top 1% that gets a chance to continue an athletic career post-college. And how many people are engaged in a work-study program in college? Raise your hands. Financial aid, work-study, working on the side, working a job. I wasn't on financial aid, and I had a job in college. My job because I wanted to make money. I wanted to have Y because all I had was X. And to get Y, you had to work more. Didn't mean I didn't do my classes. Didn't mean I wasn't focused on the other stuff I was doing. I think it is totally fantastic to have a football player from Middle Tennessee State call up Joe Coctos and say, Joe, it's John. It's Dr. Rosen. Yes, I'm the starting guard. Yes, I'm reading from a script right now, which says, would you please come to 3 games? Because if you do, at the small price of $50 per ticket per game, you will be helping our team and you will be supporting our team, and we're going to be better, doggone it. I'm not sure I understand in any way, shape, or form why anyone would object to anything Middle Tennessee State is doing. As a matter of fact, they're getting an applause from me. They are running a business. Do you remember, Coca, when this NIL started and I told you it was going to be free agency every year, and I told you that it was going to bleed on down from big-time schools to small-time schools, then down to high schools, and just you wait, it's going to get to the middle school. You can bet your sweet bippy it's getting to the middle school. And remember, I told you, I was totally fine. If that's how you all want it, if that's what you think is going to make it better with these players having access to money, okay, that's fine. What's the goal of a football player at Middle Tennessee State? I guess you'd say it's to make the NFL, in theory. In theory, they know quickly whether they're NFL worthy. Some guys come on strong, I guess, and they go from NP to P, not prospect to prospect. But in general, you have to be the best. You have to be the best of the best to get onto an NFL roster. I want to talk about being on an NFL roster, and I want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and the fight they're having with their unbelievable edge rusher, Pro Bowler Trey Hendrickson. Because I don't think that I've properly communicated to you my upset over this. You see, Trey Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader, wants to trade. He wants to trade because he's not happy with his contract, and he believes that he should be getting paid more money. Except for the fact, wait for it, he already has a contract. He is under contract to play this year, and he's using that as leverage, saying you only have 1 year left. I'm not going to practice. I'm not going to play until you give me a new contract. And it's not like he's young. He's not old. He's 30 years old. He'll be playing 31 next season at the start of a new contract. I'm not saying he's over the hill. I'm just saying he's on the way sliding down the hill that ends up at the bottom of the hill. But Cincinnati, with their lowest team valuation of only $5.5 billion in the NFL, where you're saying that they're a bunch of cheap bastards, and remember, tried to change the guarantee language and all the things that they've tried in order to actually maintain, if not grow, some leverage over their employees who seem to be making more and more money, and then in theory, producing and playing less and less because of injury or whatever the reason is. The thing is, Trey Hendrickson, he plays every game. This guy has basically played 15 or more games the past 5 seasons. This is not someone who gets injured. This is someone, last 2 years, he played 17 games each. But what he is saying is that we don't have an issue with money. We don't have an issue with years. What we have an issue with is guaranteed money at signing. Sounds a little like the NFL collusion grievance. People seem to be getting a lot of money, but not all of it's guaranteed at signing, which means, they've got to play. Can you imagine the horror of having to play to earn your money? Because I know most of you can go to work and get paid no matter whether you go to work or not. Not me. Find me that job. Hey, DraftKings, I don't feel like doing a show tomorrow or the day after. Do you mind just paying me the same amount of money? Seriously, what's the difference? 10 hours versus 8 hours versus 6 hours? I don't see a difference. Do you? Dave? Yeah, there's a difference. It's called the contract, and you're in violation. Do you know when we sign football players and basketball and baseball players to play, we sign them to play? You know what we don't put in the contract because we're not allowed is you got to play every game. We're like, hey, when you're injured, we'll still pay you. I think it'd be great to play, not to work. But David, they're physical athletes. Well, what if my voice gets hurt? What if I've got a sore throat? Isn't that the same thing? I use my voice. I gesticulate with my hands. What if my hands are sore? What if my labrum is torn? Guess what? Nope. There is no clause in my contract that calls for any sort of reason that I can miss anything, ever. Oh, you can miss it, all right. We're going to garnish your wages, Fletch. Now, I don't want to make it sound like I'm anti-player, which I'm not. I think it's great for Trey Hendrickson to try to negotiate for as much money as he can get. And I believe that Trey Hendrickson has earned free agency when he's done with the current contract he signed. If he wants to go out and be a free agent and he wants to sign with someone else and get more money, less money, side money, same money, go get it. But right now, you're under contract. And if what you're fighting about is the guarantee language, then don't sign it. If you want more guaranteed at signing and you have a disagreement, which is not a meeting of the minds in a contract negotiations, fantastic. Don't sign it. That's totally normal in the world of business, in the world of sports, in the world of life. If you don't agree with what you're getting to give, what you're giving to get, don't sign it. I must be absolutely out of my mind because I can't get anyone to agree with me. Everyone's like, oh, you go get him, Trey. You'll show those cheapskate Bengals. You'll show them that you deserve more guaranteed at signing. Oh, I forgot that you're under contract. Oh, I forgot that you're playing at 31. Come on. That's going to be solved, though. It has to be solved. I mean, you've got all the insiders. You've got Laura Rutledge reporting that what Hendrickson told her about how close they are to an agreement. You've got Diana Rossini, that fantastic media mind, telling us, hey, teams are inquiring about the Bengals star because it turns out that Trey may want to get traded. The Bengals may want to trade him. If they can't get him signed, they should trade him. Turns out that Cincinnati has an asking price, according to Diana. They want a young defensive player and a 2026 first-round pick. Huh. That's interesting for a guy in his last year who's called a rental. He's got a year left. That's it. But there may be an opportunity for Trey Hendrickson to sign a long-term deal with the team that he goes to. So then you got to pay attention to cap space and you got to see whether Trey's going to be happy and what the guaranteed money is going to be, which means there is tampering going on. You can bet. So what do the Bengals do? I think they keep him. And I think he plays because what's the fun of sitting out, getting your wages taken away, and then all of a sudden you haven't played for a year. You're 31 years old. What do I know? Maybe he'll sit and get 10 times more money. You go, Trey. You got this. Coca, did you see that Shedeur Sanders was not named the starting quarterback of the Browns even after that amazing preseason experience? I mean, amazing. He was so good that he moved up the charts from fourth to fourth. In news in Cleveland because Deshaun Watson, LeBron James, Yankees, Cowboys, Joe Flacco. Well, that one doesn't sort of belong in that mix. Joe Flacco is the new Browns starter. Are you surprised? It's really a shocker. Now, there are insiders in football who do believe that the Browns are going to take all 4 quarterbacks on their roster, like Flacco, Sanders, Pickett, and Gabriel. 4 quarterbacks on the roster? I'm sorry. Am I missing something? Do the Cleveland Browns have the key to the new way of playing football, that 4 quarterbacks is the way to build your roster in order to maximize wins? Has the over-under win total, according to our friends at DraftKings, changed drastically since we found out that the Browns have a new way to have a roster, and that way is 4 quarterbacks? I will bet you that the Cleveland Browns over-under total, and I don't know this, Coca, but I'm going to say it's low because they stink. So I'm going to say it's like 7, maybe, for a 7-10 season. They haven't figured out the wheel. They're not reinventing your imagination and how you build a roster. They're simply saying, well, we drafted Sanders. We sort of got to put him on the roster. We paid him all that money, like $4 or $5 million over 4 years for a 5th-round pick. Yikes. Aren't their over-unders 4.5? That's like a win per quarterback, Coca. That's horrific. I think what the Cleveland Browns are going to do is win 3 games, go 3-14, go through all 4 quarterbacks, wake up at the end of the season and say, oi, 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 did we make a mistake? And then we'd hear back from the Haslam family. What are you talking about? It's just business. You made the team, Shedeur. This is nothing personal.